Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is once again the stream with Klaus Moller, and we're supposed to have other guest, Ray Marasami, but she's about 35 minutes late, and man, we're just gonna just talk about stuff again. Yeah. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm uh I'm Klaus Meller. I was here talking to you a week ago, and I'm here again. Yay! What's up, Vault? How you doing?
Yeah, just being me, big brain guy, and just
Big
and just spurting shit like as I usually do.
big brained Abo American intellectual.
Someday.
Aren't you glad we don't have our own Aboriginals?
Yes, but I think the closest thing is Native Americans or Black people in this country.
That was the joke. That was the joke. We
Yeah.
we have. Never mind.
I was just joking back.
Sure you were. So, why don't we talk about some of the things we were just talking about in our secret private chat in our pregame chat?
All right, we're just talking about Trump and his tariffs, and I just think people are just slightly overblowing the tariffs. Like, I don't think it's not going to do that much damage to the greater economy.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't really see. I mean, yeah, it certainly is. Growth is not in mind in creating these tariffs. It's more about short-term political victory, securing a short-term political victory for 2018. Kind of reestablishing uh, the Trump brand for the short term. I mean, is this going to reallocate wealth to Trump's base? Maybe not, but I'm sure it will at least kind of give the illusion that that's happening. Um, yeah. Uh, Although again, like I don't really see how I don't see that this is going to do too much damage.
Yeah. Also, what's your take on the Chinese steel industry? Because what I heard, I'm not really hearing great things.
Like, what about them?
Like I heard that they're being subsidized by their government, and the quality of steel is pretty bad.
I have heard complaints about the quality of, I'm not in the, actually my mother is in the steel business, so I should actually ask her about that. But I'm not some expert on steel, so I'm not really one to judge about China's quality of steel. I've heard complaints about their poor quality, but steel, I mean, again, I'm not an expert on steel, but I can't really see too much negative coming from like actually buying Chinese steel, like buying lower quality steel and using it in cars or whatever. Uh, but on the other hand, I haven't heard about steel being subsidized by the Chinese government. Do you have any like do you know of any like stats on that or anything? Or
No, just this is what I'm hearing. I got that from neutral apprentice of ours, Pakistani reactionary. Just
oh, good old Pac React.
yeah, like he's not really like a big fan of the Chinese steel industry, and neither pragmatic culture.
The
So that's
Pakistani fascist is not a big fan of the Chinese steel industry. Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, that is an interesting case or that is an interesting reason to place tariffs um, on steel coming from China. Um,
just that just like a
Especially since I mean, like the whole idea with like any kind of barriers to trade uh, with that region is the fact that we don't have as much entry into that market as they do into ours. Like we're consuming a lot more from Asia in general than we're putting products into their market. I think that's kind of the whole idea. But
yeah, just also due to the tariffs, I heard that I heard that Canada and Mexico is like reconsidering their trade deals and their steel prices.
I'm sorry, what was that? One more time.
I heard that the Mexico and Canada is reconsidering their trade deal with America and could and doing something about their own steel industry.
Yeah, we Trump had NAFTA talks, I think, back in I want to say like April of last year, right? Or something like that. And we never really got back to that. Basically, the whole take back from it was a lot more. It was going to be a lot more complicated to restructure the um, NAFTA, and that was basically it. We haven't really heard much about it since then. Um, it'd be interesting to see more talks about NAFTA.
Yeah. Also, I'm from Michigan, and what I hear from my mom, like she's not a big fan of NAFTA, like due to the fact that the jobs are just been gone, like from Detroit and going to and basically been outsourced, and
Mhm.
like a lot of people hold that same sentiment about NAFTA. Like they just thought
Yeah,
that
I mean, well, I we were talking about libertarianism last time, and I guess kind of free market stuff too. Uh, I'm kind of different from libertarians in the sense that like uh, I'm more more oriented with nationalism, and I think that like you have to have a certain degree of national autarky, like in order to. I mean, I'm all for having, I guess, internal free markets, right? But like within the United States, I'm totally like cool with just getting rid of as many regulations and taxes as possible. But uh, we have to keep in mind that these are the citizens of the United States who are going to be creating, especially since we have a democracy. These are the people who are going to be creating uh, the government and going to be creating what becomes of our foreign policy in the long run. Um, so I guess in terms of any kind of foreign policy or setting up trade agreements or anything like that, um, I think that we have to keep in mind uh, what are going to be political implications of any kind of thing like that. I mean, economic growth is incredibly important, and I recognize that. But um, yeah,
like let's what's going on with China. Like it's sort of a bit complicated, like
yeah,
especially with their own foreign policy
it's
go.
it's not like a simple. I mean, I really the thing about like a lot of uh, just kind of I guess basic bitch libertarians are is that they really simplify this into like it's free market or no free market, and it's just kind of a bit more complicated than that.
Yeah, Like it just like they often deal like at a very high level abstractions of libertarians. Like ordinarily, I'd be really pro free trade, pro free markets, but hey, I gotta have to deal with the politics of the situation here.
Yeah, I mean, the economic can only really see, in my opinion, can only really be seen as one component of the political. You know, um, and I guess vice versa in a way. But yeah. Um, what else were we talking about before? What's up with you in this? I see you. I see you making a lot of exchanges with this the anti-theist guy or whatever. What's his name? He keeps changing his name on Twitter, so I don't know what to call him. The dude with like the skull avatar or whatever. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, nightmare fuel.
Yeah. That's who it is.
Yeah.
What's up with that? With you seem very interested in continuing in continuing a dialogue with him.
Let's see. Anti-theist. I think he's I think he's wrong. Like he's an anti-theist. I don't think he really haven't read into the religion that much. Like he just tried to present himself as a great intellectual or whatever.
I don't know, but I guess like what I'm asking is like why even engage? You know, I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
like the like I'll look at like just like a thread of his tweets, right? And I'm trying to like look him up now so I can just come up with an example. But like I'll just like look at a bunch of these and I'll just be like, I don't even know how to respond to any of this because there's just so much stupid going on at the same time. And it's just like why even I don't know. Why even like I guess it's a little off topic for discussing politics and stuff, but like why even engage at that point, I don't know.
I don't know. Just I just want to have a conversation, and he's pretty much like the leftist guy I can tolerate to a certain extent, and I just want to talk to like I just want to use them to express my own cultural borderline traditionalist views.
I don't know, man. I think that tankies are honestly more tolerable than that guy.
I
Like
don't want.
ser-
Well, the thing about tankies is that they're more willing to lie to you about history and have and they're just like a dishonest bunch.
yeah, for sure.
Also, here's something I wrote. Like when he said atheist apologists for religions are parasites, and I said like the anti-theist is immunized against all dangers. One may call him dishonest, a hack, and philosophically illiterate. It all runs off of him like a rather off a raincoat, but call him pious. You will be astonished how he recoils, how injured he is.
Wow, dude, I had no idea that we should call you Voltaire Goebbels or something now.
Yeah, that's who said that. Huh.
The original quote. The original quote is about the Jew.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like the Jew is immunized against all dangers. One can call him a parasite, something, something, whatever, and then but call him a Jew, and you'll see and watch how he reacts or whatever. I don't know the exact words, but yeah, that's a Goebbels quote. It's from I think the essay is actually just called the Jew.
oh. and, and after pragmatic responded, I said, how suddenly he shrinks back and said, I've been found out. Yes.
Volt LA in the chat says you got the phrase wrong, Volt. Yeah, I don't think you quoted it correctly.
Hey, come on.
I would look it up, but I mean, what's the likelihood that this video is going to get flagged for? Probably not, right? I
No,
mean,
uh, I just can't
probably
say.
not going to get a lot of views or anything, so might as well. Let's see. Goebbels, the Jew. Yeah, the Jew is immunized against all dangers. One may call him a scoundrel, parasite, swindler, profiteer. It all runs off him like water off a raincoat. But call him a Jew, and you will be astonished at how he recoils, how injured he is, and how he suddenly shrinks back. I've been found out.
Oh well. Oh well. I did messed up on that quote. It's still pretty.
What's that?
Still pretty funny, that quote. Like say like the ANCAP is immunized against all dangers. One may call him a scoundrel and autistic.
A pedophile.
Yeah, pedophile. But call him economically illiterate.
Yeah, there you go.
That's such a funny thing to say.
Did we mention why that we started without Ray? Because I think this video is still titled "The Clash of Civilizations." I mean, Klaus Moller versus and Ray Marasami, that's what it's called. Is that do we even say why we started without her? Or
I just said she's like very late.
Oh, okay. I know. I was just wondering if we said that. I don't know. Maybe I just forgot that how we opened the video.
And let's see if she appears. I'm not going to change the title.
Okay.
The German and the Asian and the black, the kraut.
That's like
the yellow and the Negro comes ahead in this stream.
This is like the meeting. This is like the meeting of Hirohito, Adolf Hitler, and Malcolm X, or something like that.
Yeah, I wish I could figure out something derogatory for Asian people.
Now, is she? I don't want to be gossiping or about her or whatever before she comes on, if she comes on. But is she from is she from China?
Nope, she's British.
Oh, she's British. Okay.
And she's a third.
Oh, so that's probably, maybe that has something to do with why she's been talking a lot about the nerve agent attack. Hey, let's talk about that. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I haven't been keeping up with that, but why not?
I was doing a little research on it earlier today, and her and I actually had an exchange last night through direct message about talking about it today. But yeah, I guess like basically what's going on here is that former Russian military intelligence agent, he was, I guess, working as a double agent in the 90s. He was charged with high treason and imprisoned. And I think in 2010, the U.S. and Russia did a spy swap. So there was like 10 apprehended Russian agents in the United States, and basically the U.S. traded their freedom for the freedom of four double agents, including Sergei Skripal, I think is his name. I think that's how it's pronounced. So yeah, Sergei Skripal is this guy that was attacked, him and his daughter, and yeah, so I guess he was living in the UK as a citizen after being released by Russia, and I think that yeah, it was just in public. They I don't. There's not much information out about like how the nerve agent was released or how it got on them, but I guess it also affected British citizens that were in the area. Um, so it's kind of like sort of being considered an act of war in a way of the externalities of the which is basically an assassination attempt. There's still a lot. I think they're in critical condition. Last time I looked it up, but yeah. So the nerve agent. What's interesting about this is the nerve agent is a specific kind of agent called the Novichok agent that was there's just tons of it produced in the 1980s, and since then, is supposedly production of the Novichok agent has supposedly ended, and the last time it was used, I think, was in the 90s. The last case on record was in the 90s. Since then, it hasn't been used for anything. So, I mean, what's interesting about this is like why like I mean, I'm not trying to say that there's any kind of conspiracy behind this. I have no doubt that either at least elements of the Russian government or somehow like someone else must have gotten a hold of a Novichok nerve agent. I don't really see how else this would have occurred, but like the fact that this occurred so publicly, like why do it in this way? Why not just like send an agent out to? I get the motive, like this is a double agent, and this person knows things about Russia. Yeah, I get the motive, but like why do it in this way, in a way that like is so evidently, it can obviously be pointed back to Russia. Is it just like a show of aggression, or I don't know. It's definitely sketchy, but yeah, I mean, I have no doubts that I mean, I'm sure that I think it would be a stretch to say Putin literally pushed the button on this, but I'm sure that there are elements of the Russian government that are definitely responsible. But yeah, anyways, so people are talking about like invoking Article 5 of NATO, and that's actually what I wanted to talk to Ray about, because she was saying something about, she was suggesting doing that on Twitter, and I'm interested in what she would think is appropriate retaliation. I mean, Article 5 basically just says any kind of any show of aggression, any kind of armed attack on territories within NATO is considered an attack against all countries within the alliance. So it would warrant any kind of united military retaliation. So I'm interested in what she thinks is the appropriate response. I mean, like, I think a military retaliation, or any kind of coordination of like coordinated military response would be, or like a show of aggression or anything, would just be kind of over the top. I mean, I'm not this is a little this is a pretty extreme event, but yeah,
Yeah.
to me it seems more like um, bureaucratic incompetence. Like I don't really think that there is any high up plans of like releasing, you know, coordinating a gas attack in a public space. Um, I don't know. Maybe there was, but like it just seems like that was kind of that was a decision made by, you know, some lemming, or you know, I mean that's just a bad optics. So like, I mean either it was, um, you know, it was purposefully done that way in order to show aggression, or you know what, like what's the deal here? I don't know. Um,
I haven't been looking into current that event lately. I just remember just watching a Paul Joseph Watson video on that, and just
oh, he did a video on it.
yeah, they're like he pretty much denounced Trump on that, and just also I remember just watching after that watching a Black Pigeon Speaks video about that.
What did they have to say about, like, what is what is Paul Joseph Watson responding to? Like, what is he denouncing Trump for?
Like you said, like about Syria, about him bombing Syria.
Oh, I thought you meant the nerve agent attack.
The nerve agent attack. That I barely remember. Just
Oh, so you're just talking about current events in general.
let's see. I thought that was response after the nerve agent attack in Syria, or
Oh, wait, you mean the when we the airstrikes after the supposed chemical weapons attacks?
yeah. And you seem like you're talking about this thing that happened in London a while ago.
Yeah, right. I mean, like that's the other thing. Like this has a familiar streak to it, you know. Um, the way it's going down, the way it's being investigated, the way it's being reported, it's very protocol. Like it seems just like you know, business as usual for um, MI6 and CIA. You know, like it definitely sounds you know, too familiar. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. The fact that the I mean the fact that there seems to be substantial evidence um, that this is a Novichok nerve agent. I mean, I don't know. I don't know too much about nerve agent production, so I wouldn't know like how easily it could be faked, or you know, someone could produce one on their own in order to frame Russia. Uh, you know, personally, I do not know too much about this area of chemistry, so I can't really speak with authority about that. But it seems as if there's more evidence that um, things are as they are being reported in this instance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't too happy about the airstrikes in Syria too. I think we were talking about that last time as well.
Yeah. Just so much. Oh, foreign policies is a very, very convoluted, complex topic. Just I don't know how people can keep up with that like every single day.
I to be honest with you, I didn't even like I since this attack, I just basically ignored it until like the last 2 days I started reading about it. I mean, anything like Russia in specific, you know, you just want to kind of ignore uh, in the news because it's all ridiculous, you know. Um, but this does seem to be a little more serious. I mean, people are threatening all kinds of. I don't know. I don't know what could NATO or the countries within, realistically do about this. I mean, in terms of sanctions, uh, I don't know. I can't even think of anything. Um,
Long live
Rojava.
Rojava. Is that the Kurds or part of the Kurds? Honestly, I'm not the big fan of the Kurds.
I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Oh, long live Rojava. Is that the Kurds? The
There. I'm pretty sure that there are Kurds in Rojava. Yes.
oh, that's northern Syria, right?
Yes.
All right. I think they have at this point. I think they have no chance of getting their country.
Of what? Of getting their country?
Yeah, or I may be confusing with the Kurds.
Wait, what?
Like, isn't northern Syria like Kurdistan or?
Yeah. No, it's northern Syria is Rojava, basically. It's like the Rojava territory
No.
in this conflict that's going on. Um,
Let's see. The last thing I heard about that particular region, northern Syria, that Turkey actually invaded and massacring these people.
yes. Yeah, a lot of the Rojava people are uh, very against Turkey for that reason. Um,
So
yeah,
yeah.
I,
So
what's that?
they're not going to get their own country.
Um, I think that like it will last a while. Uh, it's just it seems a bit too abstract and unorganized, and um, I don't know. It seems to just be the existence of Rojava seems to be prolonging the civil war, as far as I can tell. Um, yeah.
So is it true that the Kurds or Rojava are socialists or Latin?
They have Rojava has kind of its own brand of socialism. Um, I think they mostly structured their economy and um, political environment around like Abdullah Öcalan and that
Mm,
kind of I guess like democratic democratic confederalism stuff.
well, I don't know. I don't know. I get that weird, uncomfortable feelings. United States support socialists.
To what extent are we? To what extent is the United States supporting Rojava? I
I
don't
think
really think
I
that
think
they're
telling
really giving them that much support, if any. I'm pretty sure that we're supporting like quote unquote moderate rebel groups that are uh, like kind of disorganized and in southern Syria, aren't we?
I believe so. Air support. According to Nicholas. And I
According to
think
who?
Nicholas the Great in my chat right now.
Air support. Yes,
Yeah.
they are libertarian socialist. Tankies
So
and fascists hate the Kurds. Yes, as a fasci, I do hate the Kurds.
I just don't think that I think they're gonna end up like the Mujahideen.
I don't know. I just kind of think I mean, the whole project is just kind of stupid.
I think
uh,
everything the U.S. done in the last 2 decades with foreign policy has been stupid.
Absolutely.
Just, I don't know, like liberal democracy, spreading liberal democracy all over the world. What a great idea!
You want to put that seed, man. You want to spread that seed.
No, no, no. I think the neoconservatives got that wrong. Liberal democracy. I think
You
they
want,
that
you want
I
to
think
spread that seed. Democracy.
the only thing they spread is capitalism all over the world.
Want to dig it up. Want to dig up the soil.
So
Put my Protestant work ethic deep in there. Spread the seeds. Yeah. No, I'm basically, especially post Cold War, everything in the Middle East has been just totally tragic and ridiculous. Uh, Absolutely absurd.
I don't know. Some things could have been avoided, or I don't know. I think Bush sort of overstated the Islamic threat in the Middle East.
The yeah, I mean, Islamic extremism in the Middle East is more of just like its presence in the Middle East alone is more of just a product of. I do kind of agree with the a lot of people on the left that it's mostly just the product of intervention. Um, yeah,
Just like I don't know. I think Israel
I
might
mean,
be.
especially after the toppling of Saddam Hussein. I mean that seems to have created ISIS for the most part. Not created, but to have strengthened ISIS for the most part.
I don't know. Maybe the problem is our democracy itself. Like most presidents don't really think the long term of foreign policy. Sort of the weakness of just having like a constant military intervention, foreign policy with no real stated goals.
Yeah, it is pretty absurd.
I think in the last about 5 years, everything been absurd.
5?
Yeah,
Is that it? Just
uh,
5?
maybe 10 years.
I would say for at least the last 3 or 4 decades, our foreign policy has been out of control.
I don't know. I think Reagan had the best foreign policy, during the 1980s.
Was that?
Uh, Seemed like I don't know the way I hear it. Like he was able to project peace through strength. Just he was able to do that, and maybe it's just the Cold War euphoria still on me. Just something I kind of saying, tear down this wall. Like
Uh, I mean, I don't see that his administration did much too different from Carter and I mean, I think I personally think Carter was probably most aware about or most self-conscious about like um, intervention and U.S. presence in the Middle East, but I don't really think there was much that he could do. There's not really much that any of these presidents can do. Um, it seems to be just something ingrained. But I mean, I don't really see. I don't really agree that the Reagan administration um, rolled back too much. Um, I mean, yeah, we got the tear down this wall and everything. Uh, I mean, it's nice, but like I don't really think that put much of an end to anything, to be honest. I mean, especially with the whole Iran Contra thing, and that I mean that that was interconnected with different administrations. You know, that's the whole thing, is like this interconnectivity between you know, the different presidential administrations is carrying over this absurd foreign policy that we've had. Yeah.
Just, I don't know. It seems like a great president with a good foreign policy. Instead, maybe Richard Nixon.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole thing. Like, I mean, we talked about Henry Kissinger last time too, and I think I'm Henry Kissinger is someone that is so easy to hate, but for me, I'm very divided on him, and I see a lot of I see him as like almost a contradictory person, like a person conflicted with what he sees to it that he has to do, but the negative parts of his negative actions as a Secretary of State have kind of carried over to Secretaries of State, it seems. I think that there were good things that he did. Like, I mean, there are decisions that he made that were the best decisions that he could make. But I also think that he kind of set a precedent for just total inadequacy in foreign policy too. It's strange. I have a very divided opinion of the man. But
I think people try to be him too much. Then,
sure, that's a fair assessment.
like, I don't know the exact record for Hillary Clinton's foreign policy record. Just well, what I can gather from more conservative leaning people, that she was somewhat incompetent and just like, I think she didn't really. I think the problem with Hillary Clinton, I hope this is a fair criticism of her, is that I think she just lacked foresight. Like, I think
absolutely, yeah. I mean, she is definitely extremely pragmatic and unprincipled, and like the vast majority of her actions as a politician are oriented around political point scoring, and no doubt, you know.
like,
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying about her.
like I just think I think she just lacked foresight. I think that she don't really have a really clear political philosophy. Even if she did has one, it's very convoluted. As for actual secretary as our actual Secretary of State, is that, like, from my own little research into that, is like I just figured that she was just I get a feeling that she didn't know what she was doing. Like, I get a sense of unconfidence from her.
Yeah, I could say that's a fair assessment too. Yeah. I mean, yeah, her personality is very easy to see through, especially um, in the past decade or so. You know, post Bill Clinton's presidency, you can definitely see the lack of self confidence that she has. In just general press hearings and things like that. You know, she seems very, in her demeanor, it just seems very unsure about her own decisions, and the decisions of her administration as a whole, whatever administration she appears in.
Like, let's say that famous beating stick that her critics like to use, Benghazi.
Yeah.
Like what I can gather this, that I think that she was just being negligent. I can't say that word.
Negligent.
Yeah, negligent. Double check. Can't, can't, I can't say
Neg,
words, man.
negligent.
Negligent. Yeah. 'Cause I think it was just a lack of negligence and just a lack of, like I said, foresight. Like one could say that could have been blowback after taking out what's his name, Gaddafi. Like
Yeah,
it just seemed it could have seemed like they could have paired like more security in that area. Um,
yeah.
especially
I mean, that was a pretty ridiculous. Yeah, like you look at an event like that, and it's like, why tell that lie? Like, where's the motivation? And to me, that's a clear sign of someone who um, is not at all confident in uh, making public appearances and being cornered and that kind of thing. Like in my mind, like uh, I see that as like she got this idea in her head to say something, and then she kept rolling with it and rolling with it and rolling with it, and she it becomes it gets to the point where you're like, why am I believing my own lie? Like uh, that kind of thing. Like she doesn't know why she's lying. She doesn't. She herself does not know why she's lying. It's just kind of a pathological sort of thing. It's
just
it's it's habitual.
like I can expect someone like Henry Kissinger because at least he is sure what he's doing. At least he know how to defend himself from his critics. Like just
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Henry Kissinger is not at all uh, a Hillary Clinton. He definitely has self confidence and charm for that matter. Yeah.
if I was running for president, if Henry Kissinger was like a younger man, I think I would make him my Secretary of State.
Yeah. Um,
Just like
yeah.
let's see, I think there's like two stages of his career as Secretary of State. One is like sort of like the good one, like with Nixon. Like Nixon, I think that was like the best part of his career, you know. And the second stage is like what's his name? With he was Secretary of State till 1977, I believe. Was Gary Ford president then? Gerald Ford?
No, I'm pretty sure he was only Secretary of State under Nixon.
I'm really I thought he was Secretary of State for till 1977. And just let's see. Just gonna check Wikipedia.
Oh yeah. He was Secretary of State under Gerald Ford. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that second stage of career that people will probably have criticism of. Like what I can gather, I think he supported the Karamus in Cambodia. And also for even during Nixon, he can be criticized for those illegal bombings also in Cambodia. Like I'm not gonna sit here I'm not gonna announce him as a war criminal, but hey,
I think it's fair to say Henry Kissinger is a war criminal to the extent that you could indict anyone else as a war criminal.
no,
Um,
I don't know. I'm not willing to go that far. Like, yeah, he did commit like illegal bombings in Cambodia, but like, you really gonna try like a U.S. Secretary of State for that? No, you're not.
I mean, sounds fair to me.
Jeez,
Anyways, I got to run to the bathroom really quick. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Oof, what a piss. All right. Well, we were talking about indicting Henry Kissinger, as if
Yeah,
we're about to go do that.
yeah. Let's have a unofficial trial of the Jewish Secretary of State. Actually, since he's Jewish, let's not trial him. Um he's free of guilt due to the Holocaust.
I think if one criticism could be given of him, I would think that it would be. I mean, I personally think, like on principle, I think the idea of preventative war or preventative conflict in general is mostly. I mean, like I could see some situations in which it might be um, beneficial, but I mean, you definitely have to know what you're doing.
Well,
Um,
there's a famous quote by Otto von Bismarck.
yeah, I was actually just thinking about that too.
Preventative war is like committing suicide out of fear of death.
Yeah.
That's such a cool line to say, like especially during a movie.
um, yeah, I mean, and especially since von Bismarck was such a pragmatist himself. I mean, like I think Kissinger could have kept that more in mind. Um, yeah, but
Yeah, is
I mean, like you can only, I think you can only criticize. I mean, I feel this way about the United States government in general. Like, I think you can only criticize the people in it to the extent that, to a small extent. Um, Overall, like the organization of the United States is incentivizing really bad decision making. Um, I mean, democracy itself is what incentivizes just war making for the most part. So, um, you know, I don't see Kissinger as some kind of saint, but I don't see many people in the United States government as having a lot of choices in what they can do. Um, yeah,
just
certainly, certainly, certainly presidents too. Uh, but um, yeah, I mean, like in terms of secretaries of state, like you only have to look at just the repetitive um, nature of this whole thing. We don't really seem to change up the attitude of the United States foreign policy by sticking different secretaries of state in power. Um, yeah, we were actually just talking about Pompeo earlier. Um,
yeah,
I,
like
I mean, that seems the whole Pompeo thing um, seems to be. I haven't followed it much, but it seems to be in response to Tillerson's uh, lack of desire to want to show aggression towards Russia. Um, or something. I have no idea. And I mean, like Pompeo, I don't know much about him yet, but the fact that like we're getting like the Lindsey Grahams in the Republican Party, the approval of the Lindsey Grahams, I think is not a good sign. But yeah, like you like in terms of secretaries of state, like Tillerson, basically, you know, questions kind of the established attitude toward this problem that's going on right now, and he's out. You know, like it's really as simple as that. Like you don't you make certain choices, or you don't have the ability to make choices anymore. That's kind of the problem here. With the whole project that we have going on in U.S. government.
It's like it just seemed like.
And the other thing is like we I mean, there's such a people keep like criticizing Trump for firing people in his cabinet all the time. I don't really. I mean, maybe he's firing people more than the regular U.S. president, but I don't. I also don't think that like this is entirely his decision making. Yeah, I think there are elements in the United States government that do not want certain decision makers to exist in the United States government, and I think that has a big impact on who's getting fired.
Yeah. And someone is actually right. Just gonna just check her Twitter. She's active on it.
I can probably. It's 6:15 where you are, right? You said you're in Michigan.
No, I'm in North Carolina right now.
Oh, I thought you said in Michigan. You were in Michigan.
I'm from Michigan.
Wait, what?
I'm from Michigan.
Oh, okay. So yeah, well, I think we're both Eastern Standard Time, right? It's 6:15 where you are right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I could probably go till I can maybe like 8 is probably like the very latest I could stay on here. So
Yeah. Just hopefully she'll join at some point.
yeah, I'd really like to talk to her. She seems like an interesting person.
Yeah.
She doesn't seem to have been active on Twitter in the past 12 hours. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe she got assassinated by the Russian government.
I don't know. Like she seemed rather insignificant. I think she.
That's not nice. It's not nice to call your friend insignificant.
But she's a woman though, and Asian.
That's real sweet, man.
But seriously, I just hopefully she just joins at some point randomly during a stream during a conversation.
Hey, so can you do screen sharing with the Google Hangout app, or were you doing that with your camera earlier?
Oh, yeah, you can do that with Google Hangout.
Do you know where to find that?
Yeah, just it should be like a screen share, and
Screenshot. Oh, okay, I see it. Um,
Yeah. What do you want to swing?
I was just gonna show you something I just started reading. Um, this specific let's see, is it going on? I don't know if it's working. Huh, I don't know. It doesn't seem to be working. Anyways, she I guess she saw that I posted something about Evola. Let me find my tweet because it was something about being right wing enough for Evola. Uh, and she recommended Miguel Serrano, who I guess is kind of like in that sort of weird traditionalist kind of esoteric school of thought. And I was gonna share a couple pages from this book that I'm looking that I downloaded. Let's see.
Right now,
Yeah,
I'm thinking about letting Curt Doolittle in this stream.
why is he
He's
is he
active.
on?
Yeah, he's pretty active on Twitter right now. He's following me for some odd reason.
That's kind of funny. Oh, I think you know what? I think he probably started following you because you said something positive about him or something.
Probably. And I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering, like since he DM'd me, just like, do you like want to join my stream? Like, I'm just talking like geopolitics with my friend here. I'm just wondering, is that a good idea to contact this guy?
Okay, so my tweet about Evola was the only thing right wing enough in quotes, quote right wing enough for Evola is transforming yourself into a mystic 60-foot tall ball of light and disappearing in the middle of the ocean, only to be found thousands of years later after the great global cooling in which you rise once again alongside Thule. If you don't meet these requirements, you're a bourgeois materialist.
Yeah, man. What did Ray comment on that? Oh,
She basically we were having an exchange, a private exchange about it, and that's when she recommended me Miguel Serrano. Anyways, this book, it's called Adolf Hitler: The Ultimate Avatar,
oh
and
wow.
it's basically, I guess, from what I can tell so far, uh, it's describing him as an archetypal avatar, like interpreting the actions of his rise to power and the Third Reich, um, as archetypically avatarish. Yeah, I don't know. It looks kind of interesting. I haven't read it yet. I've only read a couple pages, but
Yeah. Should I DM him? Like, see if he's interested to join this stream? Curt Doolittle. Like,
I guess. I mean, I don't know. Would he be interested in talking to two fucking nobodies? Who knows?
but him himself is kind of a nobody, and just
That is true.
I'm just gonna just ask him like, if he's interested. Just I hope the guy he's not. I really hope the guy. I hope he's nice about it. Like sometimes through his trees, like he gives off like a hostile tone. Just gonna say,
Do you like my new my new cover photo on Twitter, man? It's
Yeah,
put a lot of work into that baby.
who's the new face guy?
The what?
Who's your new face guy on Twitter?
Oh, that's Ortega.
Uh,
I guess my new thing is I'm just going to periodically Photoshop different faces onto the Brzezinski painting that I originally had as my as my photo.
yeah. Do you like my new profile picture on Twitter? Bertrand Juvenile.
So is that I've actually never even heard of that guy. Is he an economist?
Yeah, and he also French. So I'm.
What's his deal? Like what's his shtick? Is
Let's see.
he
He was really heavily cited in Democracy, the guy that failed by Hoppe.
was he?
Like he's like French economist. Also, I think he's a monarchist too. Um, he wrote like 5 books during his lifetime.
I'm surprised I don't recognize his name.
He's pretty little known, like not that well known. But there's something cool about that beard.
He kind of looks like what's his name? Uh Schwan, yeah. Frischoff Schwan. Um kind of has that look to him. I don't know, maybe a little less Jewish looking.
He's not Jewish.
No, no, Schwan isn't Jewish, but he just kind of looks like he is. Uh,
Yeah, look like our philosopher is gonna join. That's that's kind of look like our philosopher is gonna join.
who is that? Who is this?
Doolittle just. Oh wow, you actually joined.
Hi, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm fine. Thanks for pulling me up. I have a little time here. So,
Hey. Hey, hello. We're just talking about like people like Henry Kissinger and the state of U.S. foreign policy.
Give me that again.
We're just talking about the state of U.S. politics and geopolitics, and we're talking about people like Henry Kissinger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
And one of the points that my friend brought out that like when to understand Kissinger mentality usually operates in the now and forced to make tough decisions that can be criticized in hindsight, but that's not how he operates. You know.
So I'm not sure which question you're asking. I mean, I don't think Kissinger's all that important anymore. I think when he was at a time and place where the way he thought and worked was really important, and that time has passed because our beliefs about the world at that time were more naive than our beliefs about the world today. And so he has somewhat moved along with that understanding. But like many people of his generation, it's too difficult for him to fully face it because it would mean abandoning a lot of things he valued in his achievements in life.
I'm just trying to say is like we're just trying to discuss his mentality and comparing it to people like Hillary Clinton and others.
Well, there's a very big difference between Kissinger, who's an intellectual and And that Clinton, who's just a smart populist, um, not the least of which is that Clinton was actually educated by some fairly smart people. A historian in particular, who I think that Hop and I both follow very closely, and I think that he's very clear on the evolution, the process of these cycles. I think the Clintons must be judged on trying to make a legacy like that of the Kennedys. That was his real motivation. And it wasn't like Kissinger's to change the world. I think that Kissinger is basically part of the era where neoconservatism came about. Liberals who turned into conservatives, pseudo-conservatives.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a very big difference. Kissinger is a very, he's a student of power and a possibility, and Clinton is an opportunist. And I think that, there's nothing too similar there to go with. I don't know what.
Huge divergence in kind of their motivations for being in power too. For Kissinger, it seems a lot more about, I guess, mental stimulation. It just seems like something that's a stimulating thing for him.
Well, it is, and I'm definitely in the Hayek Kissinger mentality framework. I don't. One of the reasons I don't do more public work is because I actually don't like it. Whereas if you're Bill Clinton, you watch that guy work a room.
Yeah.
He feeds off it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he really only made one tragic mistake, and that was he did the women in the military thing. And that blew him, because that was a big mistake. The reason they want to do it is threefold. Most important of which is that the military is actually the biggest redistribution program we have, and he wanted to open that up to women. They wanted to advance feminism to get the women's vote. And lastly, the extreme left, wants to demasculinize the military and continue the 1960s forward to the postmodern attempt to destroy Western civilization by destroying its central means of participation, which is the military and the militia. So, Clinton's got some ideas there, but again, he sees it in leaving a legacy out of pride. And Kissinger, like you suggest, sees the world more as this is intellectually interesting, and how can I enact change, incrementally. Kissinger's intellectual. He used to be one of the people I wanted to meet, and not anymore, but when I was younger, he was one of the very few people I thought I would get something out of a conversation with.
Yeah, he doesn't really seem to have changed much.
No.
Brought.
If you read his book on China,
I've been wanting to look at that. Yeah,
he's getting there.
Yeah.
But there's no, he can't do what he did before, which is get involved in the power play and then look smart because he's not actually smart. It's because he has inside information. And so he can't play that game he used to play. He's not involved enough anymore. But as a historian, he knows what he's doing.
That's interesting.
I expected his book on China to be the same kind of stuff he produced during the Israeli-Palestine. It wasn't at all. It's a pretty good work. He came to the same conclusion the rest of us did, which is that China starts out in a certain path that's very different from ours, and we don't know why, but that's the one they chose.
What I heard about China is they sort of view themselves as a global hegemon already, and just sort of what they're doing. If you
They want to. They view. Here's how they view it. It's very simple. Is they view that they have always been the center of the world. And that's what their philosophy says. I mean, everything is, they're the middle kingdom, which means the center of the world. And it's always said that. They come into modernity and they get trashed, right? They get everything falsified. Then they go and they try to have the communist revolution. And it's a freaking catastrophe, right? And 100 million people die. Right. And so they are trying to perpetuate the myth of wisdom of the Chinese people. And so that's how desperate they are. The reason they want to do this is because China is actually an empire, not a country. And they have incredible differences in regions that would lead, as what Mao was trying to prevent, to the fractional, turning the China into what is the United States originally was, a bunch of separate states. And so Mao raised up the village people who were too ignorant and came in, destroyed all the urbanites and killed 100 million people and, brought in communism. And it was horrible to try to, just what the whole reason was to try to preserve this mythos, Chinese pride. And so, eventually they know they can't do this anymore. So they start stealing our technology and imitating us. Well, there's something that authoritarian civilizations are very good at, and that's catching up.
Yeah.
And so, if you want to catch up, authoritarianism is really good. It only runs out of juice when it has to survive by innovation. But still, when you've got that big a surplus population, I mean, if you understand economics, so there's a value to a surplus population that has human capital potential. It's not like going to the Caribbean. No matter what we do, those people still have 70 IQs. There's nothing we can do. But when we go to China, you're talking about a population that might have in the aggregate 105 aggregate IQ. So they have a whole well of human capital to draw from. And as long as they can keep moving that forward, it's going to generate wealth that can generate income for the government, which then can be used on military, research and development, infrastructure development. And as long as the U.S. is willing to foot the global bill, China can pull this off. So they've just taken a very Chinese approach, which is to incrementally undermine and replace the United States as the global leadership. And they're doing a great job of it, honestly. I mean, they're doing fantastic at it. And meanwhile, we got our left trying to make us imitate Europe without realizing Europe is what it is because we defeated them in the Second World War and destroyed them and their client states. And so, I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, it's not like you can. That's the problem with democracy is you can't it works really good if there's spoils and you're distributing them, right? So we had the spoils of conquering, killing off all the natives, conquering and selling off the continent. We had the spoils of the Louisiana Purchase and the westward expansion to sell off. We had the spoils of selling that land to all these European immigrants. We had the spoils of inheriting the British Empire after the fall of the European empires during the World Wars. We inherited the spoils of being the only industrial economy left standing after the wars, and everybody thinks that the American way of life is going to continue, right? But we've run out of spoils. Not only that, is we've given away all our cultural institutional advantages, and everybody's caught up. So, I mean, we don't have any advantage anymore. We've got one advantage, is largely genetic, and we're giving that away through immigration. So, you're not going to, that's the great thing about an authoritarian or a monarchical society. You can't get these ideologies that come out of temporary circumstances and pretend they're going to extrapolate into the future. It doesn't, you can't have it. Well, Chinese are better at it. Frankly, the Russians are better at it. Mm-hmm. This is the difference, is the Russians are overtly dishonest and the Chinese are indirectly dishonest.
Do you think that the lack of advancement in the West that we're seeing today is going to kind of trickle over to China? I mean, do you think that that's going to hold them back as much?
No, because that's the thing. Why is India poor and China isn't? It's because China has the Red Army. The
Yeah.
whole secret to a civilization is: can you make an army who will impose enough order so that the middle class can form? And China's doing it. If you form your middle class, that's where your wealth comes from. Always has, in every civilization, always ever will. And so the problem is, how can you get a class of people that organize production that can compete on the world stage? Well, China's doing that. They have 1 billion people. They're all related kin. I mean, Han is it's the biggest racial, ethnic group in the world. There's 1 billion of them. You take that group of people, you have a huge surplus of people that you can move from class to class. So you can use capitalism to give them incentives to work to change things. And there's existing technology you can consume in order to change things. And so you're in this position where you've got incredible resources available to you, and you're in a government that can concentrate wealth in the use of power. Where in America, in Europe, they've spent all their ability to concentrate power on social programs, so much so that they've created intergenerational genocide. Nobody breeds. They have to bring in workers. Europe's committed suicide. In America, we're doing the same thing.
What I'm asking is,
So China's going to win, and the world's going to be.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Is like, do you think? Actually, I should have posed the question the other way around. Like, do you think that like if we were to advance, like if we were to turn things around, would China just kind of feed off of that and then kind of just
give me? I gotta change my location here because I'm bothering people. So give me 1 second.
That's pretty interesting. I wish I thought that way.
Wish you thought what way?
I mean, I wish I thought like what you're saying right now.
Come on, you.
Just struggle, but all in China.
I'm back.
All right, so I guess what I was asking was, do you think that sorry, my mic was screwing up. Do you think that, like, even if the United States and Europe were today kind of just to turn things around, get back ahead in technology and everything else, do you think that China would just feed off of that and still stay ahead in the game, or like what?
You can't prohibit them from catching up. You can prohibit them from getting ahead.
Yeah.
But they're willing to. They're not Christian, They're willing to do things we aren't willing to do.
Yeah.
So, and they don't have a problem with it because the Chinese people aren't going to complain that what the government is doing is immoral, like the English people complained about the British in India. The Chinese don't care. We're just animals, right? They're the center of the world.
Yeah. You just.
What's that?
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking right now. Just.
I wanted to ask you, what do you think about this this nerve agent attack that's been in the news recently? Like, what do you think about the West's response to this? Like, does it feel kind of?
It's so obvious, right? We always think of things from this universalist Christian perspective and that we're doing the right thing. But what does a Russian think? A Russian thinks we're trying to commit suicide. We're going the way of the Roman Empire. We're falling. So what does a Russian think? Well, Putin's got nothing more. They all think we're somewhere between. The way they think about it is we're naive children with lots of money that break things. And so what Putin is doing is he's simply creating hostility against Russia intentionally. I mean, why else use that poison? I mean, they whacked Seth Rich for certain, right? I mean, it's got to be them that whacked Seth Rich, right? But you do that with a gun because you can't prove it. But you only use a Russian-invented toxin when you want everybody to know that Russia did it. Well, Putin's coming up for election, right?
Right.
That's all he's doing. That's all this stuff that's in the news. He's getting elected, and he's got incredible approval ratings. I mean, he never goes below 65%. He's like one of the most popular leaders in the world. I think only the Queen is more popular, and that still vacillates.
How much of the popularity? I mean, I know you're kind of critical of, as far as I've followed you, you seem rather somewhat critical of Russia and of Putin.
No. I'm not. I'm critical of when you're right, just say it. This is the Russian problem. When they're right, they don't just come out and say, I mean, if this was my problem when I was in Ukraine, I mean, everybody understood there was nothing magic about what they did. The problem was Putin could have got on the phone. He could have sent the ships to the port, right? Sent the trucks to the border, called up who was in charge at the time in UK, called up the Obama and said, I know this is going to piss you off, but this is why I do it, and it's going to create a strategic imbalance that I don't, and I'm afraid that it's going to cause me and my people to get a little too close to war, so we're not going to lose our major point. What I want to do is give the Ukrainians a 20% discount for the next 90 years on their gas and oil as compensation for this. Bingo, you're done. Right? It was the little green men thing, and then creating a revolution in the Donbass. I mean, it was being surreptitious. When if he had just said, we paid for everything in Crimea, it was the only reason it's part of. We paid for it with blood and sweat and tears, and the reason it's part of Ukraine is because when the thing fell apart, it happened to be in that jurisdiction. And everybody. The truth is, we hate those people in the Donbass. They're Russians, and they're rude, and they're like our white trash here in America. I mean, if you think of your borderline criminal, we don't actually have that. We don't have white trash low enough to equate to the people that Russia moved into the Baltics and Ukraine. I mean, because we don't have anybody that's primitive, but they did. Now, I love Russians, and I'm all for it, but I mean, they don't mix with Ukrainians who are far more like the Poles than the Russians.
Well, I mean, okay, so that kind of feeds into what I was getting. The question I was trying to get to is what do you think the favorable attitude towards Putin is more born out of a nationalist spirit, or do you think there's
it's practical. If you lived during the collapse of the Soviet Union, and I know a whole lot of people who did, it was horrible.
Yeah.
Imagine that you're living here in America, and all of a sudden there's no government. Almost everybody loses their job, and the whole place is run by gangsters. Here would be black people, running the streets, stealing everything tied down.
Yeah.
And all of us, and then you had a strong man come in, and the oligarchs who are mostly Jews have raped the country. The gangsters have raped the people, and he comes in and puts the army in place and says, actually, I'm taking over everything that belongs to the people and directly putting the income from it, which is basically all the resource management, because it's a resource economy. I'm putting that into the state as a way for paying for our modernization. And then he took the courts, which were completely useless, and he's more than tripled the number of cases moving through the courts. So Russia's a corrupt place, but it's nothing it isn't chaotic. I mean, cities are livable. People have jobs. Moscow is a booming, expensive city. Russia's basically Canada. I mean, if you think about it, Canada is a very big country with a small population, thinly distributed along the border. Well, Russia's pretty much the same, except it's 11 time zones and 140 million people instead of 3 time zones and 40 million people. But it's the same thing. Canada sells us, wood, and Russia sells the whole world petrochemicals. And the difference is Canada's built, because it's next to the United. Canada would be poor if it weren't for the United States. Canada built, an immigration economy around Toronto, doing the same suicide Americans do, and they've built some modern economies in other places. Some except Ottawa's a shithole. But Putin, he's built industry in every single city in the former Soviet bloc. So, I mean, from their perspective, he's returned self-confidence, order, and respect to Russian people. And furthermore, they're right about a lot of stuff. We're committing suicide. They don't want to do that.
Yeah, I do get the kind of impression that it's not. I mean, that not that they kind of have like a simultaneous fear and love, but I do like you said, it's practical. I do kind of get that impression about
Russia. Think about Russia. Right? We have been. I mean, I don't know what your ancestry is, but I'm basically English, and we have been Norman English. We have been militia for thousands of years. We've been sovereign for thousands of years. The idea of a peasant or a serf never happened in England. So when we had slaves, you had a path from slave to freeman to nobility. I mean, there was a path there, right? But the Russians were serfs, and they were under, especially people in Eastern Europe were preyed upon by Jewish agents. Jewish had the tax collection job on these people, and they went from serfs in the late 1800s to Soviets, right, to today. They're not comfortable without power because it means they're vulnerable. So they think about the world differently. They didn't have the evolution of the middle class over centuries. They didn't have every man fights and owns a territory there. We all have a vote. They didn't have juries. They were run by the Mongols until the Muscovites kicked them out incrementally. I mean, Russia is basically the Mongol Empire taken over by Muscovites, right?
Yeah. Huh. What else were we talking about earlier? I don't remember.
We were talking before Henry Kissinger. We were talking about we were just talking about general U.S. foreign policy, and I was just giving my thoughts on that, and just
on what policy?
U.S. foreign policy, like.
There are competing interests in U.S. foreign policy, and the deep state is still in the Clinton era. The military is not sure what to do because the government is, to their view, somewhat ridiculous and untrustworthy. And you have the commercial sector. I mean, there's a whole lot going on there because you have the military, the utopian the utopian left, the neoconservative globalists, the military who at best just wants to preserve the status quo so they can keep their rents. I don't know. You have the deep state, which is really trying to relive the Clinton experience because the deep state considers other states the customers and we as employees. And that's how they act. And so you have all these contingencies. So when you say foreign policy, we have a lot of actors. What Trump is trying to do is force other countries to pick up, to carry their weight. And the military is telling them they can't. And the State Department's saying you're making all our customers push back against us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It really does make sense.
What is your impression of Pompeo? I don't know if you've been following that at all.
Give me that again. You realize it breaks up now and then, so I have.
Oh, I'm sorry. What is your impression of Pompeo? I don't know if you've been following that at all.
The
new, I think he's replacing Tillerson as Secretary of State.
You know what, Trump is trying to push this reform down. And so he's bringing in certain people. Now, what I like I don't know a lot about this guy, but what I like about him is that he is practical, not ideological. In other words, he's perfectly happy to go out and kill people. All right. And so from that sense, in the sense that Trump's attitude is, he feels like, well, all I did was give the military license and they're doing their job on these terrorists, right? I just need to do the same thing with the CIA. And as far as I know, that's what there's nothing more complicated to it. And one of the reasons is, and I come from the same, I'm from the same, a little younger generation, but I learned business the same way Trump did. And I totally get how he thinks about it, which is, I don't need to be smart and I don't need to be too much plan. I just need to let people who are smart do their thing. Right. And that's just how you do things. And, it's different when you're in government and you have to keep all this political economy running. And when you're a king or a wealthy entrepreneur, you don't have to keep the political order happy to keep your job, your power. And so as an entrepreneur, you don't think like a politician because you're not trying to survive on political favors. And so he's just doing what you do in business, which is, I don't know, I'll put you in place. And if you don't go, I'll fire you and I'll put someone else in your place. And that's what you do. You don't do that in a church because everybody needs faith. But in business, when you have power, you don't do that.
I see some of these people that he's putting in office, and I think that I get the impression that maybe his interests are being subverted to some extent, but I don't know. I don't really like some of these people, like their background. Like,
you're thinking too hard. You're thinking too hard. You got to think like you have decided. You don't believe anybody's right, including yourself. You just say there are deals. Deals are fair or they're unfair. That's it. This deal is fair and in our interest. That deal is not fair and not in our interest. There's nothing else to think. And that's how empirical, that's when you run a big business, not when you run a political big business, like a Fortune 500 company is, it's more like running a church, where you're running a privately held business of scale. People, the whole thing is people can quit if they don't like it. And you can fire people if they don't succeed. And there's always someone else who will try. And so the only empirical measure you have in business is a deal good or not? That's how he's thinking about it. It's really simple. So when you say subvert his interest, absolutely, because he's got all these forces opposing him. Inside the White House, inside the bureaucracy, inside the Congress, inside the media, and he keeps bringing in these human shields to do his work for him, and they take enough slings and arrows that it's going to hurt their future careers, and they move on. And I would do. That's like feeding the infantry to the cavalry, so that you reserve your cavalry. I mean, I would do the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't give a lot of weight to it. When you have the human resources available to you and you're not worried about opinion, you only are trying to keep your customers, which is the base, satisfied that you're working in their interests, your customers. People are just tools to get shit done.
Okay.
Does that bother you or not?
No, that is a very rational and smart way of looking at things.
I can only do this because as a businessman myself, of course, I run $100 million company, not this fucking gargantuan thing. The difference is when you're running in his business, you got to realize housekeeping staff, janitorial staff, right, construction people, and politicians. That's what you're dealing with. They're fucking shitty people. You can't trust a goddamn thing they're doing.
People are always gonna do
Right?
what.
In my business, I deal with my customers are the CEOs and upper management of Fortune 50 companies, and my employees get an average out at 120 grand a year salary. So, I have a little different problem in that I'm a little more concerned about my employees than Trump is. But for Trump, you grew up in that environment. Everybody's trying to scam this, scam that, cheat on that. You're dealing with corruption everywhere. I mean, you can't build a hotel like that without bankers and investors and lawyers and government officials and unions all trying to scam off it, right? So when you say out and you lay out your strategy, if you lay it out too clearly, people game it. So you don't. You lay out a goal and you let people come to you and you look for opportunities for combinations that are beneficial and you get rid of the rest. It's a little bit like playing King of the Hill, except you're getting all your soldiers to, you're getting all the soldiers to kill each other on the way up.
Hmm.
And so, I think this way because that's how I would do business also. And that's one of the reasons I've only had one public company is because I can't operate the way that political companies have to in the public eye. I mean, I think it's fucking evil. So Trump is the same.
Just seem like I can't live that way. I mean, I can't just handle that. For me personally, like so much, I can't handle like so much dishonesty or people just trying to cheat me out of a good deal. Whatever.
Well, because it's this is why I say everybody says they want to be the project manager, the manager, the CEO, or the president, or the general until they actually have the job, and you realize that's your job. Everybody's got a handout. Everybody's trying to game you. And your job is to put resources behind that which is going to achieve the optimum at the lowest cost. And so that's why you have to be a little sociopathic to be a CEO. If you get emotionally involved in this stuff, you're dead.
But you seem so balanced, though.
What do you mean balanced?
I was just being sarcastic.
Oh. I don't even pretend to understand. It's a very leadership. Most of us scale our experience. We don't realize that as you move up, the reason you move up is because more and more people count on you to help them achieve their objectives.
Yeah.
You don't have power. People put you in power. And so when that happens, you are trying to make returns for everybody. But every employee wants his salary higher. Every contractor wants to export his risk onto you, right? Meanwhile, your employees are probably trying to do the same thing, which is what, all entrepreneurs who are self-made say the same thing. Your objective is to try to operate business morally and still profitably. because in the end, that's what causes you future discounts on future actions with your customers, with your employees, whatever. So any guy will tell you the trick is you operate a moral business and you're going to do better. The problem is you got to realize everybody's working with you is trying to counter that. I mean, employees all think they're right? Your employee comes to you and says, "Well, I'm working on this, whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, no, but the truth is, I can replace you for less." That's all. There's nothing more to it than that. And then you want to know why guys get paid more than women sometimes. Well, it's because I can trust him and I can't trust you. I know that if the shit hit the fan, this guy's going to be here till 11 o'clock at night every fucking night to make me happen, and you're not. That's what he's getting paid for. Or he's going to tell me about anything that's not in the company's interest, or he's going to push people to do what's in the company's interest. That's why he gets paid extra. So it's just it's not easy to be. It's one thing to be a general when people are basically slaves. It's another to be a bureaucrat when people, and it's another thing to be a corporate officer, and it's quite another thing to be an entrepreneur, and it's even worse if you're king. I think people always, we do what we can. We understand what the tools available is to us, and what we do is we go out and we project our current knowledge into the future, into larger scale. This is what why women are crazy, is they project the feelings that they have toward their children and their family, even their close friends or other children. They project that beyond the family scale, and that's why women are crazy. Nothing scales.
Yeah.
I'm saying something you don't like. What is it that you don't like?
Nothing. I think you're saying what is pretty much true about life.
Kind of relating this back to how we were discussing Kissinger. What do you think is like? What are the incentives set up for Trump? Like, what do you think is his end game in presidency itself? Like, what are his motivations for? I mean, is it just will to power, or like?
No, it's just I wanna die knowing I did everything I could. I mean,
I mean, I get the sense that's
he's
what he goes into business.
the Ubermensch, right? He's the Ubermensch. He's the ideal Ubermensch. Right?
That's basically what I was getting at. Yeah.
He's just doing. I mean,
as he says, I'm pretty sure that the opening sentence in Art of the Deal is like, "I just do it to do it." So I think that's.
Yeah, it's not that you want to do it. It's that some of us are competitive. Some of us aren't. I mean, I have to go to a therapist every couple of years for a week to say I'm doing it again because I'm burning myself into a crisp because I can't any opportunity to compete. I can't walk past. And I go talk to some guys. Curt, talk. And I said, well, I just need to say it to somebody. That way I have a commitment. But it's the same thing, it's just like, God damn it. Some of us love competition. And especially once you win a lot, it's addicting. I mean, I love buying companies, right? I love winning deals. It's a high. And you get a bunch of other guys together and you're good at, you put 6, 12 guys together on a management team of 25 or 40 and you win everything you do. I mean, it's you can't do that, and you can't do it in war anymore. It's the only place you can do it is business. I mean, it's a thrill, and you look at a guy like Trump, and that's what he does. He's like, I'm better than you. I can climb to the top, and the only thing I got to, and if you fight me, he loves to fight, and I completely understand. Yeah. Oh, and somebody who, if I can beat you, I can show again that I'm better. That's it.
Yeah, one thing. I mean, like one of I get the that's kind of his motivation. I guess the one thing. I mean, I'm sort of neutral-ish on
No, no,
Trump.
hold on. Let me add one more piece. So whenever the United States does something that's stupid, it's his team.
Right.
And so he sees it that my team can't be stupid. If my team is stupid, then whoever's in charge isn't good enough. And I need to be in charge, which is exactly the only person you ever want in charge. Anybody who wants to be in charge, you don't want them. But anybody who says, look, you're fucking my team. You're doing a shit job. I don't want this fucking job, but I mean, somebody's got to do this job who's better than you. I'm happy if somebody better than me comes along. I don't want to do all this work. I'd rather sit and enjoy. But if you're going to screw the team, it makes me look bad.
Right. I guess what I'm getting at here is I definitely would consider myself neutral on him, and I am glad that he is in power. But I guess the one thing that gives me uncertainty about him is like not really understanding the directionality of his will too much. If you get what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, again, you make judgments to preference or preference instead of outcomes. I would certainly. I love that he circumvents the press, and I love that he controls, he encourages attacks on him, just so he can show they don't matter. And so I would do something different from that, and I would do more education. But I don't think that's he hasn't built a career. I mean, if you look at his financial staff, for example, these are number crunching people, but they don't argue. They just negotiate. And so there's a difference between people who negotiate, which is to combat, people who communicate, and people who direct. And what he would be better off with is someone who said, well, I mean, the reason he's doing it, I'm pretty sure is this, because that's that in our current position, that's what he thinks. Now, the reason he gets voted in, of course, is because he's promising to fix what the average guy feels is unfair in this particular world, and they're sick of being treated as disposable assets, and he gets elected on that. And frankly, he's to those people, he's doing a great job. To me, as long as he's gutting postmodernism, which he's trying pretty hard to do, and he's making the world think that the U.S. isn't going to always come and solve their problem for them, so that they grow up and take responsibility, I think that's great. But if you're a person who wants a homogenous, happy world where everybody comes in the door and likes you, I mean, that's not going to work your way.
I think the Anglos only believe in that.
Of course, yeah, yeah, exactly, and it's why we're in trouble.
Well, the Anglos are utopian. The Germans are. What's the problem with Germans? I think they're too competitive, or
no, they got their asses kicked.
Yeah, that,
and that's really just it. And they're just going to need another generation to get over it.
Pride. I think that's ultimately what it is. Germans.
And the Russians are somewhat honest people. Say, hey, you are stupid, but hey, I'm just not going to tell you. I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to watch you.
Russians are the problem Russians has is they actually can't believe that American policymakers are this naive. And so to the American, I mean, I have spent a lot of time with Russians and people who live under Russian government, and the way it's inconceivable that you could be as stupid as an American. So therefore, if it's inconceivable, you must be being dishonest. And that's literally how they think about it.
they consider us dishonest. Is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah, they think it's impossible to be that naive. So therefore, you must be dishonest.
and the great irony is that we aren't that naive. I guess.
Well, what must be done? That's the big question I've been pondering lately.
What is?
What must be done?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to have a revolution. That's what we're going to have to do. There's nothing else. We're either going to. I mean, the government collapsed in the '60s in just under 3 weeks, and equests to the demands. It's going to happen. The same thing is going to happen this time because they really have any choice, and we're so much more fragile than we were in the '60s.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
We are definitely a lot more fragile.
A great coming apart in America. Is there any subjects you wanted to talk about?
Who, me?
Yeah, like in particular.
Oh, I mean, if I have all I was doing today is I worked until about 5:30. I was tired, so I went over, said I want to test Jordan Peterson's audience. So I went on his Twitter feed, and I just picked I picked 30 fights, and and I'm going to test his audience, and it comes back they're fucking morons. I mean, not the people the people who disagree with them are fucking morons, and so and the people who agree with them are inarticulate. So, I'm like, what can I do here? What can I do here to seed a discourse and see what happens? What can I learn by picking fights? I mean, again, I'm no different from Trump, right? Pick a fight. So I was doing that. In the middle of that, you guys ring, and honestly, I usually ignore most of these, but I recognize you, and you're a smart guy, so I thought, okay, well, I'll talk to this guy.
Yeah, okay, that's nice.
All right.
Yeah.
What exactly are you trying to get from this discourse that you're creating between Jordan Peterson haters and
it's very difficult to get people to report what they think directly. In other words, if you ask them what they think or you engage in a civil discourse, people will they'll lie by intent, they'll virtue signal, whatever. But when people get in a fight, they tell you what they think. And so when I want to understand how a group of people think, I start a fight. And so I do this. I've done. If you watch me for years, I mean, Andy's probably the guy who knows what I do best, and he just laughs at it every time I do it. But whenever I want to understand a discipline or a group of thought or any group of people, I start a fight because it creates a moral. I violate their moral intuitions because at that point I'm getting past their pretense. And so it's just a way of discovery. Think of it as some economists call it going slumming. And so if the guy who went, what's his name, who went and understood drug dealers, he just went slumming, right? Well, I go slumming. If I want to know what a bunch of morons think, I go down in there and I start a fight with them. And, that's what I learned. Sometimes you get okay, what's the matter? Say again?
I was going to say the two crowds kind of like just, well, the crowd in favor of him kind of just mindlessly repeat whatever it is he has to say. And then like his biggest critics are just kind of, I don't know, not even really addressing anything that he says. I mean, I'm not like a huge.
Well, this was my argument, and this is why I have people. Right. You don't. I don't know if you see these discussions, but I have some closed forums where I talk with people who are pretty talented, and they ask why I beat on him, and I said because the only thing he's doing is preaching to the choir.
Right.
He's giving he's a spokesperson for the choir. Now everything he says is probably true, but it doesn't give you anything except confidence. Well, confidence is
Right.
enough for most people, right? I mean, and that's what the left doesn't like, is they don't want our people to have confidence. And so if you intuitionistically agree with him, then you're going to think he's fantastic. And if you intuitionistically disagree with him, you don't. So the problem is, who's engaging with him on the actual theory he's holding?
Right.
And I can articulate his theory, and I haven't heard him even do it. So in my view, it's really obvious that through the various techniques he's using, he's either rediscovering, reinventing Stoicism. And that's what he's actually getting at, which is he's just put Stoicism in modern prose. If you went back a couple of thousand years, this is the same shit they taught. They taught it with slightly different language, but it's exactly the same stuff. Well, my view is that Stoicism is coming back because we're finally in a position where we need it again.
Yeah.
And so he's actually just teaching Stoicism again. Now, of all the religions that developed, Stoicism was the best. Buddhism was second, and all the rest were far distant in the past. And of course, my view is that Christianity and Islam are fucking cancers on this earth. And so he's reinventing it. And so they don't really understand what he's doing. And I'm looking at him and say, well, he's just teaching Stoicism. And for people who are moral, Stoicism is fucking fantastic. For people who are immoral, they're gonna rebel against it like crazy. And a lot of people are perfectly happy being immoral because they think everybody owes, everybody should be like the family, because we're all and they're all children. Some of us are like, well, I say this all the time. We cooperate because it's preferable to non-cooperation, but cooperation is an ultimate good. It's only valuable until it's not valuable, and cooperating with you fuckers isn't valuable anymore. You're goddamn parasites.
Yeah.
How are you going about setting up this or how are you going about slumming? Are you just doing it on Twitter? I mean, people who are
I have certain things at any given time I'm trying to work through. I spent more than a year on religion. It was extremely difficult. I only spent about a year on truth, and honestly, it was nowhere near as hard as I thought it would be. I spent this from August to about November, December on grammar, which is a word that won't make sense to you in the sense that I mean it, which think of it more as logic. And it exhausted me. Then there's the problem of saying, how do you create what Eli? How do you create little bits of wisdom that contain an equilibrial argument? And I try to make those, and those little fights allow me to construct them. So really, I view these little environments as free research. Did I think about it that way? Free research.
Yeah.
And so I get to conduct these things, and I could never do it in university. I could never go torture people like this. Nobody'd allow me to do it. But I mean, it's where I get data that's not reported, it's demonstrated.
Yeah.
So
also, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just there's a question for you in chat. What is the time scale when this revolution will occur?
I think it'll happen. It's certainly going to happen in what year is this? 18. It's going to happen within the next 5 years.
Yeah.
I think that might be pushing it a bit, but
No, we could have pulled it off. If Hillary had been elected, it would have happened. What I said at
when
the
you're
time.
saying revolution, do you mean violent overthrow, or do you mean what do you mean?
The beauty of the English model is we have revolutions all the time, and because it's not people-based, it's contract-based, we just rewrite the contract. And so the English people have had a whole hell of a lot of revolutions, only a couple of which have turned into battles. So we're going to have another one. Is it going to be? I think it's going to take some doing, but the problem is, what I've been saying for the past 3 or 4 years is that you need something for the uncommitted to commit to. In other words, people, you need something to offer people. So you
Right.
need something to offer. You need an incentive. You need a proposal, which is basically how we would organize things differently. You need a plan of transition to show people that yes, this is actually possible, and I can envision it rather than be scared of it. And you need to create sufficient insurrection to remove opposition. So all these things are possible. The hard part, at least for me, was I'm a pretty thorough guy, and I wanted to produce a constitution and a plan of transition and the incentives that would do it. And I think I have, but you don't go out with something like this that written in the form of a sketch. You make an argument, and like Hume did, or like Kant did, and it, or Darwin did, and it's got to hold up. And I think it'll hold up. I think it'll hold up. The question is whether it's the incentive, and I think the incentives are there.
I guess what I'm asking basically is like, do you think it's going to be form in more of a cultural kind of shift, or
I think it's going to be just like the 60s, where it's really clear it's going to escalate into all-out civil war if the government doesn't act, and I think
Right.
I know how to cause that to happen, and it's going to happen. I have no doubt in my mind that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Of course, I could be wrong. It happens.
It seems like you're so rarely wrong, to be honest.
I'm not wrong a lot, because the amount of effort I put into understanding what I'm saying is something that most people can't even imagine people can do. And that's why I'm not wrong very often. Now, I do stupid guy shit because it's fun, right? I mean, I'm still a guy. I still like the manly discourse, and I play around like anyone else, but I'm not wrong very often because of the effort I've put into not being wrong. So I think we're going to have a revolution, and I think, if I don't cause it, someone else will. And I think that we got very, very close. I think that had even Charlottesville not managed by a bunch of idiots, we would have probably had it begin right there. But because that planning was so poor, something the left doesn't make the mistake of, we kind of blew that window, and so we have to let some confidence build up and some pressure build. So that pressure will build both this fall and during the run up to the next election. And I think if we don't have a revolution because of this next election or right afterwards, we'll have it by the next one. What I was trying to say before the elections, this needs to be the last presidential election, and if we can make that a true or close, that's good enough for me.
Yes, that's reasonable. Man.
All right, guys. Well, I've given you quite a bit of time here. Is it okay if I head off?
Yeah, it's fine. Thanks for
here.
appearing.
Love you guys. Anytime. Take care. Okay.
Okay. I do, Doolittle.
I'm gonna head off too.
Okay, this was productive.
Yeah. We'll talk again sometime, man.
Okay. Peace out.
Yeah, I'll see you.
And I'm alone.